Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to close your eyes for a moment, just for a second. Close them. I want you to think about January. Think about who you were in January. Think about what you promised yourself. Think about that fire, that real, burning, undeniable fire that was in your chest when you said, "This year is different. This year, I am different." You can open your eyes now. Because I need to ask you something, and I need you to be brutally honest with yourself when I ask it. Where did that fire go? Where did that version of you go? The one who woke up early on January 1st, maybe January 2nd, maybe January 3rd, and said, "Not this time. This time I am going all the way." Where is that person right now? Because right now, today, we are months into this year. And for a lot of people sitting in this room, and for millions of people watching this at home, January feels like a lifetime ago, like a dream you barely remember, like a promise you made to a stranger. And here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. January didn't fail you. You ignored January. And so January, the universe, time, opportunity, God, whatever you believe in, ignored you right back. That's the title of what I want to talk to you about today. Ignore January, and the year ignores you. And before you think this is about calendars and goal setting and productivity hacks, let me stop you right there. This is not that speech. This is not a speech about waking up at 5 a.m. and drinking green smoothies. This is a speech about something far deeper, far more painful, far more real. This is a speech about the gap between the person you are and the person you know are and the person you know you're supposed to be. And I genuinely believe, that everything in me believe that that gap is the most dangerous place on earth. Let me tell you about a man I know. He grew up in a small town. Nothing special about the town. Nothing special about the house. He slept in a room with two brothers. They didn't have much, but he had a dream. Oh, he had a dream so big it scared him when he thought about it too long. He wanted to be something. He wanted to build something. He would lie on his back at night staring at the water stain on the ceiling of that small room, and he would whisper to himself, because he didn't want his brothers to hear. He would whisper, "I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it out of here." Every January, he would start. He would start a business plan, start a fitness routine, start saving money, start reading books. Every January, he was a new man. He was electric. He was alive in a way that felt supernatural. And then February would come, and something small would happen. Not something catastrophic, not a tragedy, something small. A bill he didn't expect, a comment someone made, a rejection from someone he trusted. And that small thing would create a small crack. And through that crack would come the cold air of doubt. And the doubt would whisper things, quiet things, reasonable sounding things. Maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe you should wait until things settle down. And he would listen. And March would find him exactly where February left him. And April would find him exactly where March left him. And by December, he would sit in that same small room. Older now, the water stains still on the ceiling. And he would feel something worse than sadness. He would feel the specific, suffocating weight of a year wasted. Not destroyed, not taken from him, wasted, given away, surrendered without a fight. He did this for 7 years, 7 Januaries, 7 moments of fire, 7 slow surrenders to February. That man is real. And if you think I'm about to tell you that man is me, I'm not. That man is more common than any disease on this planet. That man is sitting in your house. That man has your face. That man has your phone. That man has been making your excuses, living your life, sleeping in your bed, and stealing your years one quiet February at a time. And I'm here today because someone needs to look that man or that woman in the eyes and say, "Enough, enough." Do you understand what time is? Do you really understand it? Not philosophically, not theoretically, practically, personally. Time is the only currency that cannot be earned back. You can lose money and make it again. You can lose health and recover some of it. You can lose relationships and rebuild them. But you absolutely cannot, get back a year. You cannot get back a decade. You cannot reach into the past with your hands and pull back the person you were supposed to become by now. It's gone. Whatever year you gave away, it's gone. And I don't say that to hurt you. I say that to wake you up, because the good news, the beautiful, staggering, almost miraculous good news, is that the next moment hasn't happened yet. The next hour, the next day, the next January, whether it's the literal calendar January or the January of your next decision, your next choice, your next moment of courage, that hasn't happened yet. And who you are in that moment is not yet written. That is why we are here. Let me talk to you about something I call the January energy, because every one of you knows exactly what I mean when I say it. You felt it. Maybe you feel it at the start of a new year. Maybe you feel it after a funeral that shakes you awake. Maybe you feel it after a breakup, after a diagnosis, after a moment of looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person looking back. The January energy is that surge, that clarity, that terrifying, beautiful, overwhelming sense that you are capable of more than this, that your life has more in it than what you've been living, that you are not finished, that you are in fact barely started. The January energy is not a trick. It's not false hope. It's not the result of champagne and fireworks and the arbitrary changing of a number on a calendar. The January energy is truth. It is your soul finally getting loud enough for you to hear it. It is the deepest, most honest version of you rising to the surface and saying, this is not who we are. We are more than this. We can do more than this. We must do more than this. The tragedy is not that people feel the January energy and fail to achieve their goals. The tragedy is that people feel the January energy and then spend the next 11 months arguing with it, negotiating with it, trying to silence it with food and distraction and busyness and the comfortable numbness of a life lived just small enough to avoid risk. And here is what I need you to understand. The January energy doesn't die. It doesn't go away. It gets buried. It gets buried. Deep beneath the weight of unmet commitments and broken promises and the slow accumulation of I'll start Monday. But it doesn't die. It just gets quieter. And the quieter it gets, the louder the emptiness becomes. And that emptiness is what keeps people awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, wondering why they feel so hollow when, by every measurable standard, their life is fine. Fine. What a devastating word. Fine. How's your life? It's fine. Fine is the graveyard of extraordinary. Fine is where potential goes to decompose slowly and politely and without making a fuss. You are not built for fine. I don't know you. I don't know your name or your story or your specific struggle. But I know this about you with absolute certainty. The fact that you are here, that you sought out these words, that something in you said, I need to hear this. That is not the behavior of someone built for fine. That is the behavior of someone who knows, somewhere deep beneath all the noise and the doubt and the exhaustion, that there is a version of their life that is extraordinary, and they haven't lived it yet. That version is not gone. I promise you that version is not gone. But we have to talk about why it keeps getting delayed. Because it's not laziness. I'm tired of people calling it laziness. It's not laziness. It's fear wearing the costume of laziness. It's grief wearing the costume of procrastination. It's a broken heart wearing the costume of, I'll do it tomorrow. Let me tell you about fear for a moment, because I think we misunderstand it profoundly. We think fear is about the thing we are afraid of. We think the person who's afraid to start a business is afraid of the business, is afraid of the business. We think the person who's afraid to speak up is afraid of the room. We think the person who's afraid to love again is afraid of the other person. But that is almost never true. Fear is almost never about the external thing. Fear is about the self. Fear is the terrifying possibility that if you try, if you truly, fully, with everything you have tried, and you still fail, then you will have proven something about yourself that you are not ready to know. So you don't try, or you half try. You try in a way that gives you an exit. Well, I didn't really give it everything. I was busy that month. The timing was off. You keep an escape route from the conclusion that the failure would mean something about your worth, your ability, your fundamental value as a human being. And here's the cruelest part of that strategy. It works. As a protection mechanism, it works perfectly. You never have to face the fear. You never have to risk the conclusion. And you live your whole life in a very specific kind of prison. One with no walls and no locks, where the door is always open. But you stand inside it anyway, because walking through the door would require you to find out who you really are. I want to tell you a story, a true story, about a woman named Maria. Maria grew up watching her mother work 3 jobs, 3. Her mother would leave the house before the sun came up and come home after it went down. And sometimes Maria would be asleep when her mother got home. And she would wake up in the morning to find that her mother had left a note on the kitchen table. Just a little note. I love you. Be good. Work hard. That was it. That was the whole note. Every morning, same words, different handwriting depending on how tired her mother's hands were. Maria went to school. She was brilliant. Not in the way schools measure brilliance, not the kind that earns gold stars and perfect test scores, but brilliant in the way that matters. She saw things. She understood people. She could walk into a room and feel the emotional temperature of every person in it. She had a gift for connection, for communication, for making people feel seen and heard and valued. But school told her she was average. School gave her B's and C's and said, essentially, you are ordinary. And Maria, who was 17 and didn't yet know that school is not the same as life, believed them. She went to work in an office. She was good at her job. Good, not great. She kept herself small because small felt safe. She didn't raise her hand. She didn't raise her hand. She didn't speak up in meetings. She had ideas, extraordinary ideas, and she would sit with them quietly, turning them over in her mind, and then watch someone else say them out loud and get the credit. And she would feel a complicated mixture of relief and devastation. Relief and devastation. Relief because she hadn't risked anything. Devastation because she knew. She always knew. She did this for 14 years. 14 years of half a life. 14 years of January fires and February silences. And then her mother got sick. And Maria sat at her mother's hospital bedside. And her mother, tired, worn thin by life of 3 jobs and early mornings and notes on kitchen tables, looked at her daughter and said something that Maria told me she will carry to her grave. Her mother said, baby, I work 3 jobs so you wouldn't have to settle for one life. And then at the end, and I don't want to be dark, but I need to be honest. At the end, people lie in their beds with the specific irreversible regret of a life unlived. And that pain speaks again, for the last time, louder than it ever has, saying, we could have done so much. Don't let that be your ending. Don't let that be your story. I want to talk to you about January again because I don't want you to think I'm just using it as a metaphor. I mean it literally and metaphorically at the same time. Literally, the decisions you make in the first weeks of a new period, a new year, a new month, a new week, a new day, set the trajectory for everything that follows. Not because of magic, not because of some cosmic law, but because of momentum, because of psychology, because of the story you tell yourself about who you are. When you follow through on a commitment, any commitment, even a small one, you send a message to your nervous system. You send a message to the deepest part of your psychology that says, I am someone who does what I say I will do. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. I am someone who can be trusted. And that message, that inner reputation you build with yourself, is the single most powerful driver of human behavior. More than motivation, more than inspiration, more than any YouTube speech. Because motivation comes and goes. Inspiration is a weather pattern. You cannot control when it arrives or how long it stays. But identity, who you believe yourself to be, that is constant. That is the operating system your behavior runs on. And when your operating system says, I am someone who starts things and doesn't finish them, every new commitment you make runs up against that operating system. And the operating system wins every time. So the question is not, how do I get more motivated? The question is, how do I change my identity? And the answer, the only real answer, is through action. Small actions taken consistently that accumulate into evidence. Evidence that you are, in fact, becoming someone different. Evidence that the old story is no longer accurate. Evidence that the person who gave up in February is not the person who is still going in March and April and May. Every day you keep your word to yourself is a vote for a new identity. Every day you break it is a vote for the old one. You are always in an election, always in an election, always. And the winner becomes your life. I want to tell you about Thomas Edison, but not the story you've heard. Not the I have not failed. I found 10,000 ways that won't work quote that everybody puts on their vision board and then forgets about by the 3rd week of February. No, I want to tell you about the day Edison's laboratory burned to the ground. He was 67 years old. 67, the laboratory that represented decades of work. The facility that housed years of research, experiments, prototypes, ideas, all of it burning on His son Charles found him at the scene of the fire, watching it burn, and Charles was devastated. He was watching his father's life's work turn to ash, and he expected his father to be destroyed. He expected tears, grief, collapse. Edison turned to his son and said, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They will never see a fire like this again." And the next morning, Edison walked through the ruins of everything he had built, stood in the ash and the smoke and the wreckage, and said, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." He was 67 years old. He rebuilt. What is your excuse? I'm not saying that lightly. I'm not trying to diminish your struggle. Some of you have been through things that would bring most people to their knees. Some of you have survived losses that I cannot comprehend. Some of you are carrying weights right now that I don't know about and that have no business being carried by one person. I know that. I see that. I honor that. But I also know this. Inside every one of you, there is a version of you that has not yet given up. A version that is still looking for the door, still reaching for the handle, still whispering, even if it's barely audible, even if it's only doing so at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet and the masks are off. Still whispering, I'm not done. I'm not done yet. I am here to talk to that version of you. I am here to say, I hear you, I see you, and you are right. You are not done. Let me talk about sacrifice, because we can't have this conversation honestly without it. The word sacrifice comes from the Latin sacrificium, to make sacred, not to give something up, to make something sacred, to take something ordinary and by offering it, transform it into something holy. And every person who has ever built anything worth building has understood that the path runs through sacrifice, not around it. Through it, the person who gets in shape sacrifices the comfort of inertia. The person who builds a business sacrifices the security of a paycheck. The person who goes back to school sacrifices evenings and weekends and the sweet, easy pleasure of rest. The person who repairs a broken relationship sacrifices pride and the comfort of being right. These are real sacrifices. They cost something real. I will not stand up here and tell you that the path is easy or that the cost is small. The path is hard. The cost is real. But here is what I will tell you. The cost of not doing it is higher. The cost of the unlived life is higher. The cost of making it to the end with your potential intact and your dreams unmet. That is the highest price a human being can pay. Because when you sacrifice for something you love, you feel the cost and then you feel the result, and the result justifies the cost. But when you sacrifice your potential to comfort, when you give your years to smallness, when you trade your gifts for the price of never having to risk anything, you feel the cost every single day. That's the trade you didn't know you were making. Every time you chose comfort over courage, you were making a payment on a debt that compounds with interest. And that debt is called regret.